Welcome to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP. I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. Really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show! Hello, everyone. This is a listener feedback, but again, it's going to be kind of strange. I've had emails back and forth with my friend Mark, not going to say his last name, regarding the Pope speculation and what ifs and what we may or may not learn, what's out there. Both fans of Francis are trying to claim him as theirs, and those who wanted something more traditional oriented are claiming aspects of Leo the 14th background for themselves. Only time will tell. I invited Mark on, and he respectfully declined, but he gave permission to discuss what he was saying in response. First and foremost, I told you I had an earache, still do now while I'm recording this, but what I didn't say is I also had a massive migraine, and things don't always go well when I have a migraine. And indeed, also when you try to rush things often don't go quite as well. And I probably should have made a few more notes than I did to do that episode. The season 2 episode from May special 2 that was done on, I'm looking down at the calendar, May the 9th. I could have and probably should have done something Thursday night, May the 8th, but I said basically the same things. And like I said, since I didn't do it Thursday night, I was a little rushed Friday morning, the 9th, putting it together and getting it out. So yes, I made some mistakes. One, Mark tells me I said Leo the 15th a couple times rather than Leo the 14th. So I apologize if I've got the numeration wrong in there a few times. And he, of course, each church, each denomination may be somewhat different. He corrected me on the Catholic Church current doctrine regarding divorcees. Since I still am married in the eyes of the church, I am eligible for communion. Those who would not be would be divorcees who remarry and don't get an annulment. In the eyes of the church, they would still be married to their first spouse. So thank you, Mark, for clearing that up. I make no bones about it. I try to make this show non-denominational, and as I've told you before, I attend other churches also. So I'm not sure what the proper doctrine is now regarding like Lutheran or Presbyterian or Baptist or many non-denominational churches that I have been to. Happy to attend. Like I say, I like to get together with the denominations and all the sects, SECTS, spell it for the transcript, and try to assure that we're dealing in things that we can agree upon, because, as I say, if we as Christians are arguing like before in Ireland, Catholic versus Protestant, literal outright war and terrorism, Satan wins. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I had to sneeze. Jesus doesn't win. Satan wins when we're at each other rather than focusing on Jesus and the Bible in full context. So at any rate, though that those corrections that I may have made mistakes on, beyond that, what was Mark's one thing I said, as I say all the time, I can/do make mistakes. Made several in that episode. If you've seen the behind the scenes video one, you've seen I literally put up on the screen, oops, mistake. I was attempting to quote Matthew 5:17, and I think I said Matthew 7 there. uh, Again, I should have made the note of that mistake to correct it here, but if you go back, you'll see the mistake. Again, if you watch the video, a behind the scenes video version of season 2 Special 2 is better than the audio only version, although of course 20 plus platforms for that. 14 or 15 matters, yes, but key point on such, I do not give a bleep. a little too loose in my language with my friend there. What peeps speculation why they think he chose Leo. What matters, and I/we need hear direct from him why he thought that name was the name to go with. What we might think it implies about using the Leo name, irrelevant. Why does he think that was the name to use? Right? The more I learn, the more I see why he was picked as a compromise, left on some things like Francis and more traditional, whoops, I dropped my sheet of paper, on a few things. Compromise and part appeasement, 2/4 those who will get hung up on the from Chicago thing, even though most of his life was not spent there, and indeed picked up quite a bit of cultural Marxism. As from what I can see so far, again, speculation, don't know. We're early on here. Only time will tell. Marxism while in Peru. Said in episode, had the earache, didn't say I had massive migraine, which was clearly affecting me more than I thought it was, but being pushed due to timing of things since I didn't do it Thursday night. If I didn't do it Friday, I had 3 Saturday shows already scheduled. Saturday the 10th, the 11th, the 10th, the 17th, and the 24th of May were already planned out, ready to go. So if I were to make that a Saturday monologue episode rather than a special, I would have had to rework the whole month of May, and part laziness, part kind of a pain to do. So I decided to make it a special, which kind of put me behind the 8 ball and a little rushed. And the quality showed. The quality suffered a bit because of that. If I would have not done something as a special right away that Friday, the 9th, I would have had to have probably just stayed silent on it. And these things only happen whether you're Catholic or not. Again, Christian, non-denominational show. The Pope, like a president, does set some cultural norms or affects the culture, affects a whole lot of things. There's a ripple effect. So whether you recognize the Pope as a non-Catholic or not is kind of irrelevant here. It's an important piece of news that I kind of couldn't pass on as a Christian show. Just like the Saturday, May the 10th, season 2, episode 99. The Constitution and the New Testament is not a suicide pact. What does that mean? Biblical context, as well as in the buzzsprout transcript. I mentioned that I have season 1, episode 49 from 2024, Mother's Day retrospective in there. So that was kind of hard and in place and couldn't be moved. So if I would have waited, I would have had to have waited another week, 2 or 3, and I couldn't really do that. So what specifically did Mark say? Let me read that. Other than the one email with I screwed up the enumeration and I didn't get Catholic doctrine as it currently exists right. I might have been thinking old doctrine. Benedict or Francis, either one of them or the Pope before that could have changed it from what I knew it as. Mark said, in general, you're right. The speculation and noise about the name isn't too important right now, but we can look at his background. It looks like he was a second tier, quote unquote, compromise candidate. Agreed. Although he is an Augustinian missionary and worked in Peru, again, the Peru thing, I think, cuts both ways. His religious formation was in the USA, ordained a priest in Rome, and spent a few years before joining the mission in Peru. Francis was formed by Jesuit liberation theologians in Argentina. I agree. That's the belief of many. That's why I coined him the nincompoop, more interested in worldly communism, cultural Marxism, than biblical community of free will. We are to want to be our brother's keeper, not do so by force, by gunpoint, by theft and redistribution, which is the worst of the worst, Mark went on to say. Leo the 14th, make sure I get the number right, probably was exposed to the errors of Marxism during his work in Peru. I'm hopeful that could be the case. He wasn't sucked into it or suckered by it and rejects it, as some are speculating. Again, speculations, what ifs, we don't know. We won't know for a while. Mark goes on to say, but his formation was completely different from Francis. Also, unlike Francis, he is a canon lawyer. Canon lawyers are very methodical and careful about their language and how their decisions are made according to theology and precedent. They communicate clearly and are very ordered and disciplined. This was not Francis's background at all. I think the Cardinals were aware that we did not need another divisive figure like Francis. I am cautious, but moderately hopeful I think he meant to say cautiously optimistic and moderately hopeful he's going to try to clean up a little bit after Francis's mess. Time will tell for sure. Exactly my point. And thank you, Mark, for reaching out to me and clarifying errors I made and for presenting your opinion. I always want listener feedback. Now, if you listen to an episode and want to come on the show, record a Zoom, have an actual listener feedback interchange and engagement, like I did with Peter Seraphin one time, and I did Timo one time. Also, other 2 times, I believe, of the 4 or 5 listener feedbacks were like this, where I was reading feedback from others. So, thank you all for tuning into this listener feedback. Again, I'm human, I'm frail, I'm flawed, I'm imperfect like everyone else. I can and do make mistakes, and when I make them, I want to own up to those mistakes. Thank you. Take care. God bless.
Thank you for having tuned in for Constitutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help.